Have you ever looked at a dog, a bird, or even a tiny insect and wondered, where did it all begin? What was the very first animal on Earth? It's a question that has puzzled scientists for centuries, and the answer takes us on an incredible journey back in time, over 600 million years ago, to a world that looked nothing like ours. Before we dive in, let's get one thing straight. When we talk about the first animal, we're not looking for a T-Rex or a woolly mammoth. We're searching for something much, much smaller and way older. We're talking about the dawn of animal life, a period known as the Ediacaran. The Earth then was a very different place. The continents were arranged in a giant supercontinent, and the oceans were teeming with simple microbial life. For billions of years, life was just slime. Vats of bacteria and algae covered the seafloor. But then, something amazing happened. Out of this primordial soup, the first multicellular organisms began to emerge. These weren't quite animals yet, but they were the pioneers, the first to experiment with having more than one cell. So, who was the first true animal? For a long time, the top contender was the sea sponge. Sponges are incredibly simple. They don't have brains, nerves, or muscles. They just sit there, filtering food particles out of the water. Their body plan is so basic that for years, scientists thought, this has to be it. This is the blueprint for all animal life. And there's good evidence for it. Fossilized molecules, like chemical signatures left behind by ancient sponges, have been found in rocks that are over 635 million years old. That's incredibly ancient. But hold on, the story gets a twist. Enter the comb jelly. You might have seen these beautiful, iridescent creatures floating in the ocean. They look a bit like jellyfish, but they're a completely different group. Comb jellies, or ctenophores, are more complex than sponges. They have nerves and muscles, allowing them to move and hunt. So the thinking was, they must have evolved after sponges, right? Simple first, complex later. Makes sense. Well, modern genetics threw a massive wrench in that theory. When scientists started comparing the genomes of all living animals, they got a huge surprise. The genetic tree of life repeatedly pointed to comb jellies, not sponges, as the earliest branch. This was mind-blowing. It meant that the very first animal might have been a predator with muscles and nerves. This is the ctenophore first hypothesis. It suggests that our earliest animal ancestor was more complex than we thought. But if that's true, what about sponges? This would mean that sponges actually evolved from a more complex ancestor and lost their nerves and muscles over time, becoming simpler. It's like a sports car evolving into a unicycle. It's possible, but it's a pretty radical idea. So we have two main suspects, the simple filter-feeding sponge and the more complex, predatory comb jelly. It's a scientific heavyweight match. Fossil evidence versus genetic data. Sponge versus comb jelly. Who is right? The debate is still raging in the scientific community. But wait, there's a new player in town, and it might just change everything. Let's travel back to the Ediacaran period, about 558 million years ago. Imagine a shallow, ancient sea. On the seafloor, something oval-shaped and flat is scooting around, grazing on microbial mats. This creature is called Dickinsonia. For decades, scientists didn't know what to make of Dickinsonia fossils. Was it a fungus? A giant single-celled organism? It didn't seem to have a mouth or a gut. It was a complete mystery. Then, in 2018, a team of researchers found a beautifully preserved Dickinsonia fossil in a remote cliff in Russia. The fossil was so pristine that it still had traces of its original organic molecules inside. And when they analyzed those molecules, they found something astonishing: cholesterol. Cholesterol is a type of fat that is a hallmark of animal life. Plants and fungi don't produce it. This was the smoking gun. Dickinsonia was an animal. At up to 1.5 meters long, it was one of the earliest large animals we know of. It didn't have legs, or eyes, or a mouth as we know it. It likely absorbed nutrients right through its body as it crawled over the seafloor. Dickinsonia and its strange relatives, known as the Ediacaran biota, represent the bizarre first draft of animal life, an evolutionary experiment that eventually died out, replaced by the ancestors of the animals we see today. So, where does this leave us? We have sponges, the simple filter feeders. We have comb jellies, the surprisingly complex predators. And we have Dickinsonia, the weird, flat pioneer from a lost world. The truth is, the picture of early animal life is constantly being redrawn with every new fossil discovery and every new genetic study. The first animal might not have been just one thing. It could have been a whole host of strange and wonderful creatures, all trying out different ways to be an animal. Some, like the ancestors of sponges and cone jellies, succeeded and gave rise to the millions of species alive today. Others, like Dickinsonia, were fascinating dead ends, evolutionary experiments that ultimately vanished. What this incredible mystery shows us is that evolution isn't a straight line. It's a messy, branching tree with lots of weird and wonderful experiments along the way. The search for the first animal isn't just about finding a single fossil. It's about understanding the very moment our own deep history began. It is about piecing together the story of how a world of slime gave rise to the incredible diversity of life we see around us. From the simplest sponge to the most complex human, we all share a common ancestor that floated in those ancient seas hundreds of millions of years ago. And the quest to find it continues. Thanks for joining me on this journey back to the dawn of animal life. It's a puzzle with pieces scattered across time, and every new discovery brings us one step closer to the answer. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our world. See you next time.